Before she was born, a promise was made. Now, it's up to her to decide if it lives or dies. After discovering the truth about her parents, Amara returned home, but she was not the same. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The room was quiet. Her aunt was asleep. The village was peaceful. But inside her mind, nothing was quiet. She kept seeing the vision. Her mother touching her stomach. Her father standing bravely in front of danger. The guardian asking, "You understand the cost?" And her parents saying yes. They knew. They knew they might not survive. And they still chose to protect the forest. Tears slid slowly down her face. All this time, she whispered into the darkness, "I thought I was alone." The wind outside moved gently against the window. And again, she felt it. Not magic, not power, but love. A love that had been protecting her long before she understood it. The next morning, Amara did something she had never done before. She went to the oldest person in the village, an elderly woman named Myra. Myra had known her parents. Very few people were still alive who remembered those days clearly. "Myra," Amara asked gently, "what really happened the night my parents died?" The old woman's hands trembled slightly. Her eyes filled with memories. "Your parents were different," Myra said slowly. "They listened to the forest." Amara leaned closer. "Some people thought they were strange. But your father, he could predict storms before clouds formed. Your mother, she could calm wild animals with just her voice." Amara's heart beat faster. They were protectors long before the forest chose you. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" Amara asked, her voice shaking. Myra looked down. "Because people fear what they don't understand. And after they died, the village was ashamed. They did not want to admit your parents were right." Silence filled the space between them. "Your aunt," Myra continued, "was angry. Not at you. At the forest. She believed it took her sister away." Amara closed her eyes. So much pain had come from misunderstanding. So much cruelty had grown from grief. That evening, Amara returned to the clearing again. The heart of the forest glowed softly when she approached. But now, she did not feel excitement. She felt weight. Responsibility. She sat beside it quietly. "Why me?" she asked. The forest did not answer with words. Instead, she felt something deeper. Images filled her mind. A greedy man walking away from someone in need. A frightened child choosing to hide instead of help. A woman forgiving someone who hurt her. The images became clearer. It was not blood. It was not destiny. It was choice. The forest did not choose her because she was born special. It chose her because she kept choosing what was right, even when it was hard, even when it hurt. And that realization felt heavier than any magic, because it meant every choice from now on mattered. As she touched the heart, another vision came. But this time, it was not the past. It was the future. She saw herself older, her hair longer, her face stronger, standing in front of a crowd. The village had grown larger. Children ran freely. Trees surrounded every home. But then, dark clouds gathered again. And in the distance, she saw a young girl, alone, afraid, standing at the edge of the forest, just like she once did. The girl turned slightly, and Amara saw something shocking. The girl looked like her. Not exactly, but similar. The forest whispered, "Every protector must prepare the next." Her breath caught. So this was not just about her. It was about teaching, about building something that would last beyond her lifetime. Her parents had prepared her without telling her. Now she would one day do the same. Suddenly, the air grew cold. A darker vision appeared. The shadow root. Not gone. Not destroyed. Sleeping. Waiting. The forest spoke gently inside her heart. Darkness never disappears forever. It waits for weakness. Amara understood. There would always be greed. Always be anger. Always be people who wanted power without responsibility. Her job was not to remove darkness from the world. Her job was to keep balance. And balance is not easy. Balance requires sacrifice. Days later, something unexpected happened. A merchant arrived in the village. He was wealthy, smooth in his words. He offered something tempting. "I will build large homes here," he said. stone houses, big markets, roads. The villagers were excited. But, he continued, I will need to clear part of the forest to do it. Murmurs filled the air. It's just a small part, he added quickly. All eyes turned to Amara. This was her first true public test as protector. If she refused, some villagers might turn against her. If she agreed, the balance would weaken. She closed her eyes for a moment. Then she spoke calmly. We can grow, she said, but not by destroying what protects us. The merchant smiled slightly. You are young. You don't understand progress. Amara looked at the villagers. Progress without wisdom is destruction. Silence spread across the crowd. Then Myra, the old woman, stepped forward. She speaks with the same strength her parents had. One by one, the villagers began nodding. The merchant left. And for the first time, the village chose balance together. Not because of magic, but because of trust. That night, as stars filled the sky, Amara stood beneath the tallest tree. She finally understood the biggest secret of all. The forest did not need a hero. It needed a reminder. A reminder that humans and nature were not enemies. A reminder that kindness is stronger than fear. A reminder that power without heart leads to ruin. Her parents were not chosen because they were powerful. They were chosen because they loved deeply. And she carried that same love. Not in her blood, but in her decisions. The forest always knew her name. Because her parents whispered it to the trees before she was born. Because the wind carried their hope. Because the soil held their promise. And because the moment she chose kindness in fear, she became part of something older than time. She was never just a girl forced into darkness. She was the continuation of a promise that began long before her first breath, and would continue long after her last. Years later, Amara was no longer a young girl. She had lines on her face now, not from sadness, but from years of smiling, working, and living. The village had grown into something beautiful. Stone houses stood strong. Trees surrounded every home. Children were taught from a young age, take only what you need. Give back more than you take. The forest was no longer called forbidden. It was called the promise. One evening, as the sun slowly disappeared behind the hills, a small girl stood at the edge of the trees. She looked nervous. She reminded Amara of someone. The little girl turned and saw Amara watching her. Is it true? The girl asked softly. Were you once chosen by the forest? Amara smiled gently. I was chosen by my choices, she replied. The girl looked confused. Do you still hear it? For a moment, Amara stayed quiet. Ever since the day she released the power, she had not heard the forest whisper her name again. No glowing light. No voice. No magic. But she stepped closer to the trees anyway. She closed her eyes. She listened. There was no whisper. Only wind. Only leaves. Only life. She opened her eyes and looked at the little girl. You don't need the forest to whisper your name, she said softly. You just need to live in a way that makes it proud. The little girl thought about that. Will the darkness ever come back? She asked. Amara looked at the village behind her. People helping each other. Children planting trees. Neighbors laughing together. Darkness always tries, she said honestly. But it only wins when we forget who we are. The wind moved through the trees one more time. And this time, it did not whisper her name. It did not need to, because the lesson was no longer inside one girl. It was inside everyone. Amara took one last look at the forest, not as its guardian, not as its chosen one, but as part of it. And as the sun fully set, she walked back toward the village, not into darkness, but into a future that no longer needed magic to survive. And that was the greatest victory of all. The promise lives on, and so do the choices we make. Subscribe to follow the journey of stories that stay with you.